Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared. My lovely wife Kara's busy. And today we are checking out the Berg Blades Iron Pup. Mini Iron Pup. This knife was sent to me by Stasa23. And definitely go sub to his channel. It will be linked below. Awesome, awesome guy. Awesome guy. Can't get any better. And has awesome content too. Definitely a lot of user content and yeah. So, the Iron Pup. Now, if you read the thumbnail, you've seen I said this doesn't make sense. So, this knife is so amazing in so many ways, but there is one massive failure that just, it really hurts this knife, and we'll get into that in the bad. First, let's talk about the knife. So, we made this knife. It is S35 VN blade steel, all titanium, and in a lot of ways it feels like a custom. I mean, this thing is extremely well done, and it's such an amazing knife in so many ways. Also, the anno work is by Stasa23. That is a Stasified anno finish on the back spacer and clip that's titanium. Nice carbon fiber. I really like the cross cut sections, side cut sections, whatever you want to call it. It just looks really good. And then you see the checkered face of it that also looks really good. And the finish work, the tumbled stone washed finish is really durable. And I really love the look of a good stone washed finish. Just looks so good. And like I said, it's very, very durable. Now, the action. Wow, is this action good? Whew. The access to the lock bar is really nice. The flipper tab has the exact kind of jimping that I like. It's very grippy and has well placement for your finger. Finger is very comfortable on that flipper tab. You can really feel where to put your finger, and like I said, it's very comfortable. When you pull it down, the detent is well tuned. Well tuned is an understatement. You know, this is built by Wiha, so you know Wiha does have the detents usually dialed in really good, and this is a great example of that. So you can light switch it, which is kind of preferred, and you can see how it really kicks, man. The break of the detent is really nice. Now you can push button it, and it's not hard or anything. They have a nice landing zone that's extremely comfortable too. This landing zone, you feel it when you flick it. I mean, it's a beautiful landing zone, and it really fires out. I would call this a strong detent because it's even hard to pull out, and you can see it when it does go back in there. It sucks it in nice and strong, and it rockets out. Great lockup, no play, any direction. I mean, very, very solid. Like I said, the lock bar, even though it doesn't have a cutout here, having these two little spots cut out, it works great. And beautiful dropping action. The detent is nice and early. You never have to worry about it being passed because your finger, even if you hold it up high, it's still passed, which I love to feel. I hate it when you're sitting there doing the double clutch and it's hitting the detent and you're trying to unlock it and it's back and forth. None of that here. Very smooth on its ceramic bearings. It does have the steel lock bar insert, and the over travel stop is the carbon fiber. So you don't have to worry about unspringing the lock. The ergos. I mean, this is a small knife, but considering how small of a knife it is, it's not bad. I mean, I'm mostly a 3-finger grip, but I can crush 4 fingers on there if I really need to. I just kind of push my finger up on the flipper tab or finger guard. Now you do have the jimping there, so it is a little rough on the finger, but it's not a big deal. And this is more of a sharpening choil than a finger choil. But you can take advantage of it, you know, and relatively comfortable, good thickness, good depth for a small knife. Now we're talking about a small knife. How small are we talking? Benchmade mini griptilian size. So that's a quick size comparison, really quick. Maybe we'll do some more at the end, maybe not, but it's a small size. So considering it's pretty decent. Now, the clip The clip is extremely good. I mean, no, it doesn't carry extremely deep, but man, that ramp is perfect. Everything works beautiful on it, in and out of the pocket with ease. It's silent, and that's a good thing, because sometimes when you can hear a clip going in and out of the pocket, not always, but sometimes that means that it's giving you trouble somewhere along, along the lines of going in and out. Either it's rough in or rough out. Not always, like I said, but sometimes when you can hear it. But in this case, nice and silent, goes in and out very, very smooth, and it makes you want to carry it. It makes you enjoy carrying it when you get a clip that works very well and it's not chewing up your pants. And yeah, and it also looked really good inside my EDC pouch from Real Man Real Leather. I really liked it. It really popped, and I enjoyed carrying it in there. The jimping, if you look at the jimping, it lines up really good. Everything lines up. The jimping is well done. This is the kind of jimping I like. It actually works, actually gives you traction. And like I said, the jimping on the flipper tab is also well done. So, the jimping, where it's put and how it is, works great. Internal stop pin. If you look right here, you can see the stop pin right there. It's a pin, and it doesn't move. Sometimes you see the stop pins that are connected to the blade and they move back. This one is just placed right there, and there's a groove cut out in the blade. So as it opens up, it stays in place, and that track, basically it runs in that track that's on the blade. So it prevents it from opening up any farther, while the lock bar prevents it from closing. The fuller does not work at all, so I know you see that fuller. It's just for aesthetics on this clip point blade. So let's talk about some bad things. So cutting with this thing. Now, cutting with this thing with double thick cardboard, not good. Not good at all. It does not pass through materials good, especially double thick cardboard. It has horrible blade geometry that makes this knife not make sense. We'll go more into that in a second. Now, the edge is sharp. It will cut paper, but it's, just because the edge is sharp doesn't mean the edge geometry is good. And we'll go into how we can fix that a little bit if we wanted to. But as of right now, with the factory edge, even though it's relatively sharp, it's not a fresh edge, but it does not cut very well. It does not pass through materials very well. Now, when I switched to single-walled cardboard, thinner cardboard, it cut better, but not good. Just because it cuts better doesn't mean it cuts good. The 157 thousandths blade stack thickness, and then it gets down to about 25 thousandths behind the edge. And now you got to think that whole entire drop from the thickest point down to the edge is all in this one little tiny area from here to here, because this is the blade stock thickness. So it rapidly drops down to the edge, which makes it have very bad geometry for going through materials. Now, with this clip point blade, you would think, even though it does have a relatively decent sized belly for your slicing, thick tip, it's not the best utility cutter. Going through double walled cardboard for utility cuts, not good. A lot of the cuts I had to either put a crazy amount of pressure, which is easy because it's compact and small, and you do have these little spots in the back of the handle to push back up into your palm. But trying to cut through it, without a lot of pressure, I would have to make 2 cuts. So after trying that a few times, I did switch to some single walled cardboard, just regular cardboard, and it cut better. It did cut better for the utility cuts. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't good, but it wasn't horrible. The tip is just thick. The whole blade is thick. So it's not going to be the best slicer, cutter, or utility cutter. Now, let's go into how we can fix that if we wanted to. Or not fix it, but make it better. What we could do is lay back the edge. We could sharpen it. Now, this isn't my knife, so I'm not going to do that. Stasa23 already knows this, so, he would have no issue doing it himself. And he's a heck of a sharpener, so Now, I would put probably a 17-degree angle on this blade, which would make a big bevel. So that's the one thing. It would stand out, and it would go from smaller here, which would still be big. Its smallest point would still be pretty big, but getting up to the tip would be pretty big. As you can see, this edge already has a taper. You see how the edge kind of gets thicker at the tip. So it would do the exact same thing. The smallest point would be right here, and it would slowly get bigger up through this belly. But it would cut so much better, especially the initial bite in the materials. It would be infamously better, but it still wouldn't be great going through materials because you still have the blade geometry, and then you have this fuller here. Now, a lot of times I don't really complain about fullers, and in this case it does look very cool, but that also gives you a little drag. Now, in some cases it's not a big deal when you have good geometry already, because the good geometry is making the blade pass through the material, so a little fuller creating a little bit of drag isn't a big deal. But in this case, adding it onto this blade just creates more drag, so you're getting a lot more drag. Now, that's why I say this knife does not make sense, because you have basically a fixed blade on a folder. It's the geometry is not for a handle of this size. Now, if you were just going to say, oh man, all I do is cut strings, I barely use my knife, I just open packages. Yeah, it's great. And in a lot of ways, I love this knife. This knife is so awesome. There's so many awesome things about this knife. It feels like such a high-end knife. It really does. The action, all the work done on it, everything, it almost feels like a custom. But the geometry just really holds it back as a tool, as a working tool. And it's thicker than what I would say is good for a harder use small knife. Now, like I said, doing a little bit of work on that edge, laying it back a little bit, changing the geometry of the cutting edge, yes, it would benefit it massively, but it's still not going to be the best without a regrind. Now, what's another bad thing? I'm not a big fan of T6s. We already see that. Wiha uses a lot of T8s. I don't know why they went with T6s on this. Maybe it was by design. Obviously, it was by design, but I'm not a big fan. So I'd like to see T8s. Next thing, now this one's really not a big deal, but this is kind of a finger choil, yet it's not. I mean, you could say it's a sharpening choil, but man, it's a big sharpening choil. Now the plunge grind comes down to right there, so they did give you a decent amount to sharpen it. So I'm happy for that there is a decent amount, and if you ever needed to add in a bigger choil or anything, you could. Because they didn't put the stop pin back here. We talked about where the stop pin was. But, this isn't that big of a deal. But it would be nice to either have a full finger choil or just make a different sharpening choil. Give me the full blade so that it gets tighter to my hand. When I'm cutting. So when I'm cutting, I can start here instead of this far away from my hand, and I'm nitpicking there. So really not that big of a deal. And other than those things, I mean, this thing is, like I said, an amazing, amazing knife. I really do like this knife a lot. Like a lot. And it's not a cheap knife. I think they're running somewhere around $300. Now, there is a thumb stud version out, so if you're not a fan of the flipper, they do have thumb stud versions. Now, I think this one's technically discontinued, and the newer ones are in 20 CV instead of S35. You're going to have to look that information up. I'm not 100%, but I definitely know on this one, man, this thing is really, really nice. I mean, just so well done. There's just that one massive fail, in my opinion, that really, just it makes it not make sense. It makes a what could have been a great cutting little EDC pocket knife, because this thing's not big. This thing, you know, it's not a big knife, but it's trying to be with this blade geometry. This thing should have been a hollow grind, or if it's going to be a flat grind, thin it out. Put a thinner blade stock on there, and if you are going to have a nice thick blade stock on there, give me a slower taper. Give me, you know, just remove more steel from here. It's so thick. It's just way too much. And yeah, but other than that, man, I mean, like I said, man, I really do like it. And I'm very happy that I got to try it, because I've been wanting to try a Berg blade for so long. And I'm happy to have finally done it, thanks to Stasa 23. Just really quick, a couple size comparisons. So here's the Civivi Elementum, which is a tiny bit longer, not by much, but it is a little bit longer than the pup. Here is the Fair & Forge Prolic, which is basically the same size. And, you know, if you look at this, I mean, you can see the difference in the blade stock thickness here. They have very similar jimping, since it is done by a Wiha, but you can see the difference in the geometry, and that's just starting from the spine. This thing has better geometry, and it's basically the same height. So, you know, if it had geometry like this one, oh my God, it'd be so much better. And here's the mini grip once again, since I already pulled it out before. They're the same size, so it's basically the same size as the mini grip. Pretty much the same, you know, handle length and everything. So, and there you guys go. I love you guys. Thank you, Stasa, once again, man. And you guys, I really hope you guys go and sub to his channel if you're not already. And I love you guys, and I really appreciate you guys watching. Peace.